Aliyah had always known the world differently from everyone else. She was blind, but she had never thought of herself as limited. From the moment she could walk, she learned to rely on her other senses, and over the years she had developed an extraordinary awareness of the world around her. Sounds, vibrations, even the faintest changes in the air could tell her more than most people could see. But still, life had its challenges, and her new school made that clear in ways she could not ignore. Her parents had worked hard to get her into one of the most prestigious schools in the city. It was a place filled with students from wealthy families with polished uniforms, expensive backpacks, and shoes that always seemed too perfect. Aliyah had always been proud of her background, but she knew that some of her classmates might look down on her modest upbringing. She had hoped that once they got to know her, they would see her for who she was. That hope faded quickly on her first day. The moment she rolled her wheelchair down the long hallways, she could feel eyes on her. Some stared openly, whispering to each other, and she could hear the subtle sneers hidden behind polite words. It did not take her long to realize that some students had made her an easy target. Aliyah had expected some curiosity about her blindness, but what she faced went beyond that. They laughed at her, mimicked her movements, and even tried to trip her while she moved through the halls. Each time she kept her head high and stayed calm, but inside a storm brewed. Her first encounter with the worst of them had happened during lunch. She had chosen a table near the window, enjoying the slight warmth of the sun and the sounds of the playground. A group of wealthy girls approached, their steps slow and deliberate, making their presence known before they even spoke. One of them reached toward her tray, knocking it slightly to the side, and smirked as if she had done nothing wrong. The others giggled. "Watch out, blind girl," one of them whispered, though loud enough for several nearby students to hear. "Don't break something with your... whatever." Aliyah stayed calm. She could sense the subtle movements around her, the way they shifted their weight, the rhythm of their voices. Even the small scent of perfume mixed with the faint tang of fear that came from someone who thought they were powerful. She had learned to notice these things from years of practice at home, though no one at school knew it. "Thank you," she said softly, her tone polite but carrying a quiet strength. The girls froze for a moment, surprised that she had responded. They expected her to be scared, but Aliyah had learned long ago that fear gave people power over you. She refused to give them that. At home, things were different. Aliyah lived in a small apartment with her father, a man whose quiet demeanor hid a lifetime of discipline and skill. He had once been a martial arts champion and had trained in several styles over decades. When Aliyah was very young, he had started teaching her. At first, it was simple exercises, balance, coordination, and basic defensive moves, but over the years it became much more. Aliyah had developed precision, reflexes, and an intuition for movement that few could match. Her father always told her that her disability was not a weakness but a gift if she learned to use it. Her evenings were often spent in their small living room, where mats covered the floor. Aliyah would practice her movements, listening to her father's instructions, feeling the vibrations of her steps and the shifts in the air around her. She learned to anticipate attacks even without seeing them, relying on sound, touch, and instinct. Her father always reminded her that the mind and body worked together, and when one was sharp, the other followed naturally. "Remember," he would say, "the world gives you limits, but you decide your strength. Let your senses guide you and nothing will surprise you." Even with all that training, Aliyah kept it a secret at school. She wanted to see how far she could go without anyone underestimating her. She knew that her abilities were extraordinary, but they were hers to control. And besides, revealing them too soon could only make the rich students jealous or worse, fearful in a way that would make them even more cruel. Over the next few weeks, the bullying continued. Aliyah learned to navigate it with patience. She avoided certain areas, ignored whispered insults, and kept her focus on her studies, but she never let them break her spirit. At home, she shared small victories with her father, how she had anticipated someone's step, how she had managed to get through a crowded hallway without being touched. He always smiled, proud, but reminded her to stay alert. One afternoon, a particularly bold group cornered her in the library. They pushed chairs around, laughed at her attempts to find her books, and made rude comments about her blindness. One of them even grabbed her bag, trying to yank it from her lap. Aliyah froze for a moment, listening to the rhythm of their movements. She felt the vibrations in the floor, the slight change in the air as they moved closer, and then with a fluid motion she leaned slightly, catching her bag as it fell and adjusted her wheelchair so that they could not reach her. The girls stepped back, startled. Nobody at school had seen her respond like that before. They had expected her to be helpless, a target for easy amusement. But Aaliyah's quiet confidence made them uneasy. They muttered under their breath and walked away, but the victory was small and fleeting. She knew the challenge would come again. After school, she went home, exhausted but determined. Her father noticed immediately. He could sense the tension in her voice and the slight stiffness in her movements. Without asking, he guided her to the practice mats. "Let's see what we can improve today," he said, his voice calm but firm. He never treated her like a victim. Every session was about building skill, confidence, and awareness. He started her with movements that required precise timing and complete attention to sound and touch. Aaliyah moved with focus, her body responding instinctively to her father's instructions. As she practiced, she thought about the school, the bullies, and the whispers. She realized that their power came only from their ignorance of her true abilities. They thought she was vulnerable, weak, and easy to manipulate. They had no idea that she could anticipate every movement, sense every shift, and defend herself in ways they could not even imagine. Her father watched, satisfied. "You are ready for what comes next," he said. "But remember, strength is not only in your body. It is in your mind, your patience, and your heart. Use it wisely and nobody will control you." That night, Aaliyah lay in bed thinking about her day. She reflected on the laughter, the cruelty, and the fear she had seen in her classmates' eyes when she had responded with confidence. She smiled to herself. The world had tried to define her by her blindness, by her background, and by what others thought of her. But she knew the truth. Her senses were sharp, her body was trained, and her mind was stronger than they would ever understand. She drifted off to sleep, not with worry, but with anticipation. She knew the challenges would continue, but she also knew that she was no ordinary girl. She had spent years preparing for moments like these, honing skills that most people could never imagine. And when the time came, she would show the world that being blind did not mean being weak. It meant seeing in ways that others could not, moving in ways others could not, and standing in ways that others would never understand. Aaliyah's story was just beginning. The rich, cruel students at school had no idea that the quiet, blind girl they tried to mock was quietly becoming a force they would one day regret underestimating. And she herself was ready in body, mind, and spirit to face whatever the world threw at her, with the confidence that came from knowing who she truly was. After the first few weeks at her new school, Aaliyah noticed that the bullying was not slowing down. If anything, it was getting worse. The rich students who had targeted her seemed to sense that she was not easily frightened, and that made them more determined. They whispered as she passed, threw small objects in her path, and sometimes blocked doorways just to see if she would panic. Every time, Aaliyah remained calm, relying on her heightened senses to navigate each challenge. She could hear the soft scuff of their shoes before they moved, feel the vibrations of the floor as they shifted weight, and sense the subtle changes in the air as they came closer. One day, as she rolled down the hallway, she felt a group of students gathered near her classroom. They were talking loudly, pretending to be polite, but their voices carried an edge of cruelty. Aaliyah could tell that something was about to happen. She slowed her wheelchair slightly, listening carefully. One of the girls reached toward her, trying to knock her backpack off her lap. Aaliyah shifted smoothly, pulling it away, and felt the smirk of someone who expected her to flinch. She did not. "Careful," she said softly, not in fear but in warning. The words were calm even, and carried a subtle weight that made them pause. They laughed, but it was different from before. There was a moment of hesitation, a flicker of uncertainty. They had underestimated her, and it was clear they were starting to notice that she was not ordinary. At home that evening, Aaliyah recounted the incident to her father. He listened carefully, nodding, but his face remained calm. He had trained her for moments like this, and he knew that patience and practice were as important as skill. "Every encounter is a lesson," he said. "You notice things others do not. You sense what they cannot. That gives you an advantage. But you must stay sharp. Every step, every sound, every movement can teach you something." He then took her through a longer, more challenging training session. He set up obstacles in the small living room, instructing her to navigate them while focusing on sound and touch rather than sight. Aaliyah moved with precision, rolling her wheelchair between objects, stepping lightly over mats, and feeling the floor vibrations through her feet. Her father guided her in techniques that combined balance, speed, and intuition. "Trust yourself," he said. "You can anticipate their moves before they even make them. Use your ears, your hands, your body. Let them underestimate you. That will be your strength." Aaliyah practiced late into the evening, perfecting each movement until it became instinctive. She was learning to rely entirely on her other senses, turning what some saw as a limitation into her greatest advantage. She could hear the softest whispers, detect the slightest movement, and feel the tiniest change in the air. This was no longer just training. It was preparation for the challenges she would face at school. The next week, the bullying took a more dangerous turn. One afternoon, Aaliyah rolled down a narrow hallway and felt the unmistakable vibration of footsteps behind her. Someone was following closely, and she sensed their intent before they acted. Suddenly, a backpack swung toward her, aimed at knocking her off balance. With reflexes honed from years of practice, she shifted her wheelchair and caught it, the bag sliding harmlessly against her lap. The students froze, shocked by her quick reaction. They had expected her to stumble or panic, but she had moved with smooth precision, almost as if she had known exactly what would happen. Aaliyah did not gloat. She simply continued down the hall, her movements calm and confident. Later in the cafeteria, she overheard them planning their next move. They were determined to humiliate her publicly, thinking that if they could embarrass her in front of everyone, they could regain control. Aaliyah listened quietly, noting every detail. Their voices were loud, but their intentions were obvious to her trained senses. She smiled to herself, knowing she could anticipate their actions before they even tried. At home, she shared what had happened with her father. He was calm but serious. "They are pushing you," he said. "It is natural. They will try to test you. But remember, skill without control is dangerous. You must be prepared, but you must also know when to act. Patience and awareness are your allies." He then guided her through a new exercise. This time, he blindfolded her further, added obstacles, and moved unpredictably around her, making sudden sounds and shifts. Aaliyah had to sense his movements purely through sound, touch, and the vibrations in the floor. She moved with grace, anticipating each approach, dodging imaginary attacks and maintaining perfect balance. Her father watched closely, correcting her posture and guiding her awareness. "You are ready for more than just defense," he said. "You are learning to read the world in ways others cannot. That is power." The next morning at school, Aaliyah faced a challenge she had never expected. A group of students cornered her in the hallway, pretending to be friendly at first. One of them grabbed her shoulder bag, trying to pull it away. Another reached for her wheelchair handles, attempting to push her backward. Aaliyah paused, listening and feeling. She sensed every movement, every shift in weight, every intention. With a subtle motion, she adjusted her wheelchair, keeping her balance and control. She did not shout or struggle. She simply moved with precision, redirecting their efforts without hurting anyone. The student stumbled slightly, surprised and frustrated, and quickly released her. Aaliyah rolled past them calmly, her heart steady, knowing she had already won the encounter without confrontation. Word of the incident spread quickly through the school. Whispers followed her in the hallways, but this time they carried a mix of fear and curiosity. Some students began to see her differently, not as a helpless girl, but as someone capable and strong. The rich bullies, however, were determined to regain their sense of power, and they became more calculating in their cruelty. Aaliyah knew that the days ahead would not be easy. Each encounter was a test of her patience, skill, and awareness. But she was ready. She had spent years building her reflexes, sharpening her senses, and strengthening her mind. Every step she took at school was guided by careful preparation and instinct, making her almost untouchable to those who sought to harm her. After another long day, she returned home and practiced once more with her father. They worked on advanced techniques, focusing on speed, precision, and awareness. Her father introduced exercises that involved quick changes of direction, responding to subtle cues, and using minimal force to maintain control. Aaliyah moved fluidly, her body responding instinctively to every command, every vibration, and every sound. "You are learning more than defense," her father said. "You are learning to read intentions. That is something most people never understand. Use it wisely. It will keep you safe and give you the confidence to face anything." As the weeks passed, Aaliyah grew stronger and more confident. She no longer feared the bullies because she understood that their power was an illusion. They relied on fear, ignorance, and assumptions, while she relied on skill, awareness, and preparation. Every insult, every shove, every attempt to embarrass her became an opportunity to observe, learn, and anticipate. One afternoon, a new student arrived at the school. He had heard about Aaliyah's encounters and was curious to see her for himself. He was cautious, respectful, and treated her with kindness. Aaliyah felt a small sense of relief, realizing that not everyone in the school was cruel. There were allies, even if hidden among the crowd. She began to notice small gestures of friendship from other students who had previously remained silent, admiring her resilience from a distance. Despite these small victories, Aaliyah knew the bullies would not give up. They were resourceful, wealthy, and used their influence to manipulate others. But she had something they did not: awareness, skill, and an unshakable spirit. She had trained her mind and body to respond to danger, not with anger, but with precision and calm. That difference would become her greatest strength. By the end of Part 2, Aaliyah had transformed from a student who simply survived each day to someone who actively prepared for challenges. She moved through the school with a quiet confidence, aware of every sound, every vibration, and every shift in the environment. The bullies were no longer in full control, and though they continued to try, she had learned that their cruelty could not define her. She had discovered the true extent of her abilities and the power that came from patience, awareness, and discipline. The week of the school sports demonstration arrived, and Aaliyah knew this would be a turning point. It was an event where students displayed skills and competed in friendly competitions, but to the rich bullies, it was an opportunity. They had been planning for days, whispering to each other, convinced that this would be the moment to humiliate her in front of the entire school. Aaliyah had heard their plotting, of course. She had learned to listen carefully, to detect the smallest hints of intention in their voices. She did not feel fear. She felt anticipation. Every step, every sound, every vibration in the gymnasium told her the exact layout, the positions of the other students, and the movements of those who were likely to target her. She had prepared for moments like this, practicing with her father until her reflexes were sharp and her instincts reliable. She knew she could handle anything they tried, and she was ready. When she entered the gym, the chatter of students filled the space. She could hear the echo of footsteps on polished floors, the swish of chairs, the faint creak of the bleachers, and the low hum of conversation. Her heightened senses allowed her to create a mental map of the room, almost as if she could see it. She could detect the subtle shifts in the air as students moved, even sense the nervous tension in the bullies as they prepared to make their move. The event began normally. Students took turns demonstrating their skills in sports, coordination, and teamwork. Aaliyah waited calm and focused until it was her turn. The moment she rolled into the center of the gym, the bullies made their first move. They had planted obstacles and spread small objects around the area, hoping she would stumble or crash her wheelchair. They whispered and laughed, expecting the entire gym to watch her fail. Aaliyah paused, listening and feeling. She detected the faintest vibrations from the objects on the floor, noting their positions. She could hear the slight shifts in weight as the bullies moved closer, trying to anticipate her path. Her heart remained steady. She remembered her father's words. Patience and awareness were her greatest weapons. She did not rush. She moved deliberately, smoothly rolling her wheelchair along a path she had calculated entirely by her senses. Each movement was precise, avoiding every obstacle without looking, guided only by the vibrations under her wheels and the sound of the air moving around her. The bullies tried again. One of them reached out, attempting to push her, thinking she could not respond. Aaliyah sensed the movement almost instantly. Her body reacted before their hand even made contact. She shifted her wheelchair, adjusting her balance with perfect timing. The hand grazed her sleeve, but she remained unshaken. The entire gym froze for a moment, the whispers dying down. No one had ever seen her react so quickly and so calmly. Encouraged, the bullies tried to escalate. They surrounded her, laughing, shoving lightly, and trying to block her path. But Aaliyah was ready. Years of training had taught her to respond without panic, to use her instincts and reflexes to neutralize threats efficiently. She tilted her wheelchair, maneuvered with skill, and used her body to redirect the energy of their pushes. Each movement was calculated and controlled, leaving the bullies off balance and surprised. Aaliyah's classmates began to notice. Whispers spread quickly across the gym. Some students stared in disbelief, others with admiration. The bullies themselves were stunned. They had assumed she was helpless, that she could be intimidated, and that their wealth and status would make them untouchable. But Aaliyah had turned the situation around entirely. She had shown that her blindness did not mean weakness, and that her training gave her a strength and awareness that few could comprehend. The confrontation reached its peak when one of the bullies lunged directly at her, trying to grab her wheelchair handles and push her backward. Aaliyah reacted instinctively. She shifted her body, twisting slightly to avoid the force, and used her arms to guide the attack harmlessly to the side. The student stumbled, lost balance, and almost fell onto the floor. Gasps filled the gym. Aaliyah remained composed, rolling forward calmly, her focus unbroken. In that moment, she felt a quiet satisfaction, but also a deep understanding. She had prepared for this not to harm anyone, but to show that cruelty and arrogance could not control her. Her movements had been precise, her senses sharp, and her courage unwavering. She realized that true power was not about retaliation or anger. It was about discipline, awareness, and confidence in one's abilities. After the event, the bullies retreated, embarrassed and shaken. They had underestimated her, and the public demonstration of her skill had stripped away their sense of superiority. Some students applauded, others simply stared in awe. Aaliyah remained humble. She did not seek attention or praise. Her goal had never been to prove herself to the bullies, but to stand strong, confident, and aware in the face of their cruelty. When she returned home that evening, her father noticed the calm strength in her movements. He had followed her progress closely through her stories and messages, knowing that her instincts and training had prepared her for this kind of challenge. "You handled it perfectly," he said, smiling. "You moved with patience, awareness, and precision. You did not react with anger, but with control. That is the true measure of strength." Aaliyah nodded. "I could feel everything before it happened. I could sense their moves, their intentions. It was like I was listening to the world and moving through it at the same time." Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. "That is exactly what I taught you. Strength is more than physical ability. It is awareness, discipline, and the courage to remain calm when others try to push you down. You have it all, and you used it wisely today." Over the next few days, the atmosphere at school began to change. While the bullies still whispered, their confidence had been shaken. They realized that Aaliyah was not someone to be toyed with, and some students who had previously stayed silent now looked at her with respect. Small gestures of friendship began to emerge, subtle but meaningful. Some classmates who had once ignored her started offering help or including her in conversations. Aaliyah noticed the difference, but she remained grounded. She knew that her journey was not over. The bullies would continue to test her, and other challenges would arise. But she felt stronger than ever, confident in her abilities and in the lessons her father had taught her. Each obstacle she faced was not just a test of her skills, but an opportunity to grow, to sharpen her instincts, and to build the quiet confidence that could never be taken away. That evening, she practiced again at home. Her father had added new exercises to her routine, ones that involved reacting to multiple movements at once, predicting sequences, and using subtle shifts to maintain balance and control. Aaliyah moved with grace and precision, her body responding instinctively to each challenge. "Remember," her father said, "true power is not about winning or defeating others. It is about understanding, control, and the ability to move through the world with confidence. You have that." "Never forget it," Aaliyah smiled. She felt a deep sense of pride, not in showing strength to others, but in knowing herself. She had faced her fear, anticipated danger, and responded with skill and calm. She had proven, first to herself and then to the world, that being blind did not mean being powerless. Her senses were her gift, her training her armor, and her courage her shield. By the end of the week, the gym incident had become the talk of the school. Students whispered about how she had maneuvered through obstacles, avoided attacks, and remained calm under pressure. The bullies had been humbled, and some even approached her cautiously, no longer daring to mock her openly. Aaliyah had not only defended herself, but had shifted the balance of respect and awareness among her peers. For Aaliyah, it was more than a victory. It was confirmation that years of dedication, training, and patience had prepared her for anything life could throw at her. She had learned that strength was not only in the body, but in the mind and awareness, and in the ability to remain calm when the world seemed to conspire against her. She lay in bed that night reflecting on the week. The bullying had been intense, but she had faced it without fear. Her senses had guided her. Her training had prepared her, and her spirit had remained unbroken. She realized that the world could be cruel, but it could not define her. She was not limited by blindness, by size, or by what others thought of her. She was strong, aware, and ready for whatever came next. Aaliyah knew that more challenges awaited, but she also knew that she was capable of handling them. She had turned fear into focus, bullying into opportunity, and doubt into determination. With each step she took, she moved not just through space, but through life, with the quiet confidence of someone who knew their worth and their power. And as sleep finally came, she felt a sense of peace. The rich bullies had tried to intimidate her, but they had only revealed their own weaknesses. Aaliyah had faced them with courage, skill, and awareness, and she had come out stronger. The next part of her journey would not be easy, but she was ready. She had learned the power of patience, observation, and control, and nothing could take that from her. After the gym incident, life at school began to shift slowly for Aaliyah. The bullies no longer had the confidence to openly target her, and whispers of her skill and calmness spread through the hallways. Some students looked at her differently, with a quiet respect that had never been there before. Aaliyah noticed the change, but she remained humble. She had never sought attention or praise. What mattered to her was learning, growing, and helping others when she could. One afternoon, a younger student approached her in the hallway. He had been nervous about being bullied and seemed unsure how to start a conversation. Aaliyah listened to his voice, sensing his fear and hesitation. She smiled gently, letting him know he was safe to speak. I heard what happened in the gym," he said quietly. "Some of the older kids, they've been really mean to me, too. I don't know what to do." Aaliyah nodded, understanding his fear more than he could know. She had faced the same situation herself, though she had learned to turn it into a lesson in patience and awareness. "You have to stay calm," she said softly. "Listen, watch, and trust yourself. They might think they can scare you, but they can't control you unless you let them. And if you need help, it's okay to ask." The boy looked relieved, his shoulders relaxing. Aaliyah realized that helping others gave her a sense of purpose beyond defending herself. She could use her experiences to guide those who were struggling, to teach them that strength was not about fighting back in anger, but about staying confident and aware. Over the next few weeks, more students approached her. Some were shy and hesitant, afraid of being noticed by the bullies. Others had been ignored or overlooked for years, and Aaliyah's calm presence drew them in. She listened, encouraged, and shared advice about handling difficult situations. She taught them how to stand their ground, how to notice when someone was trying to manipulate or intimidate them, and how to remain calm in the face of cruelty. Her father noticed the change in her when she returned home each evening. She spoke excitedly about the students she had helped, the small victories she had seen, and the courage that some younger students were discovering within themselves. He smiled, proud of how she was not only protecting herself but also inspiring others to find their own strength. "You are becoming a leader," he said one evening, "not because you want to control others, but because you show them how to believe in themselves. That is rare. Remember, true leadership comes from humility and understanding, not from power over others." Aaliyah nodded, taking his words to heart. She practiced her exercises as usual, moving through the motions with precision, but her mind was also focused on how she could guide and support others. She had discovered that strength was more meaningful when shared, and that courage could inspire more than fear ever could. One day during a school assembly, Aaliyah noticed a group of students being quietly teased by some of the bullies. Without hesitation, she approached them. Her presence alone made the bullies hesitate. She spoke to the students, offering advice and reassurance, and quietly guided them away from the confrontation. The bullies were left unsure, their attempts at intimidation disrupted by the calm confidence that radiated from her. Word of Aaliyah's actions began to spread further. Some students who had previously stayed silent started to speak up when they witnessed bullying. Teachers, too, began to notice the shift. They saw that Aaliyah was not only defending herself, but helping to create a safer environment for others. Her courage, patience, and awareness had sparked a subtle but meaningful change in the school culture. Despite the growing respect she received, Aaliyah remained humble. She did not boast or seek recognition. She focused on her studies, her training, and her small acts of guidance and support. She understood that true strength was quiet and patient, and that even small actions could have a big impact over time. Her father continued to guide her, introducing more advanced exercises that combined mental focus with physical awareness. He encouraged her to think ahead, anticipate challenges, and maintain control in situations that seemed unpredictable. Aliyah practiced diligently, knowing that her skills were not just for self-defense but for maintaining confidence and clarity in any situation. At home, they created new routines that involved listening exercises, balance training, and reaction drills. Aliyah had become so attuned to her senses that she could detect subtle changes in the environment that most people would never notice. She could sense the approach of someone before they were even in her line of hearing, feel the vibrations of movement through the floor, and anticipate shifts in energy before they occurred. These skills made her not only physically prepared but mentally resilient. The school community began to notice small but significant changes. Students who had once been afraid to speak up now found their voices. Classrooms became slightly less tense, hallways felt safer, and the bully's influence was gradually diminishing. Aliyah's presence had created a ripple effect, demonstrating that one person's courage and wisdom could inspire others to act with integrity and confidence. One afternoon, a teacher invited Aliyah to speak to a group of students about resilience and overcoming challenges. She accepted, not because she wanted attention, but because she saw an opportunity to guide others. She spoke with quiet authority, sharing her experiences and explaining that strength comes from awareness, patience, and the courage to face difficulties without fear. She encouraged the students to trust themselves, to notice when others were trying to manipulate or intimidate them, and to act with confidence and kindness. The students listened intently. Some were inspired to stand up for themselves for the first time, while others realized that even small actions of courage could make a big difference. Aliyah had shown them that true strength was not measured by force or wealth, but by awareness, self-belief, and the ability to act with calm determination. Even the bullies began to change, though reluctantly. They could no longer intimidate Aliyah or the students she had guided. They realized that their attempts at cruelty were being quietly countered by confidence, awareness, and discipline. Some of them started to avoid confrontation altogether, recognizing that their usual tactics no longer worked. Aliyah continued her training at home, refining her skills and expanding her awareness. She worked on anticipating multiple movements at once, using subtle shifts to maintain control, and honing her reflexes to respond instinctively to any situation. Each exercise strengthened not only her body but also her mind, reinforcing the lessons she had learned about patience, awareness, and courage. Her father often reminded her that leadership was not about power over others but about showing them the way. Aliyah took this lesson to heart. She focused on helping students who were struggling, teaching them to trust themselves, and demonstrating that even someone with a disability could inspire confidence and courage. She became a role model not because she sought it, but because her actions naturally drew respect and admiration. Over time, the school atmosphere continued to improve. Students who had once felt isolated or powerless began to find strength in themselves and each other. They learned to stand up to bullying with awareness and confidence, inspired by the quiet guidance and example set by Aliyah. The bullies, once dominant and feared, were gradually marginalized as their influence waned. Aliyah's story spread beyond the school as well. Parents, teachers, and community members learned about her courage, resilience, and dedication. They saw that her strength came not just from physical skill but from patience, awareness, and the ability to guide others with wisdom and empathy. She had become a symbol of resilience, demonstrating that adversity could be met with calm determination and that true leadership comes from humility and understanding. Despite all the attention, Aliyah remained grounded. She continued her training, focused on her studies, and guided students quietly and patiently. She understood that her journey was ongoing, and that each day presented new challenges and opportunities to grow. She approached life with the same calm confidence that had carried her through bullying, obstacles, and fear, knowing that her strength was not just in her body but in her mind, spirit, and the way she inspired others. Her father watched with pride, knowing that she had not only mastered her skills but also learned the deeper lessons of courage, patience, and leadership. He reminded her that true power comes from helping others and using strength wisely. and Aliyah carried this lesson with her every day. By the end of this part of her journey, Aliyah had become more than a student who survived bullying. She had become a mentor, a guide, and a source of inspiration for those around her. Her courage and awareness had created a ripple effect, changing the culture of her school and empowering others to stand strong in the face of adversity. She had learned that true strength was not about defeating others, but about understanding, guiding, and inspiring them. Aliyah's story was far from over, but she had reached a new level of confidence and influence. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, but she was ready. With her senses sharpened, her body trained, and her mind focused, she was prepared to face whatever came next. And as she moved through her days, quietly mentoring, guiding, and inspiring, she realized that her impact extended far beyond herself. She had discovered that courage, Paul,